All right, hello, welcome back, everybody. Today we are looking at Chapter 2, Section 1.2. So today's lesson, we're going to look at some of the river valley agriculture. We did look a little bit in Chapter 1 at the river valley and how it had a lot of very fertile land, and we're going to look at how that led to more development in this area. We're also going to look at kind of a group of civilizations that were referred to as the Yang Shao, which, again, it was kind of a group of cultural hearths. One of the cities then that we're going to look at, or one of the civilizations we're going to look at, are the Banpo village. So while there are aspects of this that you'll find that are pretty similar to Çatalhöyük, it is also very, very different, and that's kind of what we'll be looking at. So around 5000 BC, warmer, wetter weather promoted the development of cultural hearths in the fertile river valleys of China. As in Çatalhöyük, people here domesticated chickens, pigs, and dogs. They also hunted and fished. So down in southern China, which has a relatively warm climate, people began to settle in villages. Down in southern China, farmers were able to grow rice, which was domesticated from wild rice that grew in the Changjiang Basin. Farming villages also developed further north in the Huanghe Basin. However, the colder, drier climate in the north was much less favorable for growing rice, so farmers had to find something else to grow. Farmers domesticated wild millet instead. Millet's a tiny yellow grain. It grows very quickly and it is very low maintenance, which means it's very easy to grow. So millet then became a very important part of ancient Chinese diets. So the Yangshao culture was one of China's Neolithic cultural hearths. The Yangshao lived along the Huang and Wei rivers from about 5000 to 3000 BC. So again, this culture comes after Çatalhöyük's culture that we learned about last section. In all, archaeologists have discovered more than 1,000 Yangshao sites in northern China. So as I kind of said earlier, we're going to be looking specifically at the Banpo village. This is one of the most well-known Yangshao sites, and it is a large farming village. This village contained many small houses that faced a community building in the central square. Archaeologists determined that Banpo houses were rebuilt many times. Now, we don't know exactly why they were rebuilt a lot of times, but one of the main theories as to why this might have been is that the villagers may have abandoned the village when the fields were exhausted of nutrients, so when crops were not producing as much food, and then they returned when that land had recovered. Banpo villagers grew millet as their staple or their main crop. They also grew a fibrous plant called hemp and cultivated silk, which they crafted into textiles. Textiles, remember, are things like cloths and clothing and anything that you might use like fabric for. So the Yang Shao at Banpo left behind a unique style of pottery that demonstrates their artistry. Yang Shao potters created bowls and vessels or containers that they formed by hand and baked in kilns or ovens just outside the Banpo village. The Yang Shao's painted pottery commonly features geometric designs. So other examples of this pottery include shaped vessels used for food storage. Archaeologists have found many of these vessels and other useful items buried with the dead in neatly arranged graves. These grave goods, as they are called, suggest that the Yangshao people believed in a link between the living and the dead. Although we don't know exactly what their specific religious beliefs were, we can assume that somewhat like the people in early Egypt, in ancient Egypt, they believed that somehow they could take goods with them from this life to the next life. Because most of the graves contain similar types of grave goods, archaeologists believe that most people probably had equal status in society. So, unlike ancient Egyptians, where poor people were buried with one set of things, and then obviously pharaohs and the rich people were buried with a very, very different set of items, most of the Yangshao and Banpo people were buried with the same types of items, which shows that they were probably held about similar financial status. So something else that we can discover by examining the way that the Yangshao and Banpo people buried their dead is that they probably organized themselves into clans or family groups because the graves were formatted in such a way that there were groups of people that we can assume were clans. Based on other things like DNA testing and stuff like that, we can also take a good guess that these clans were matrilineal. So, matrilineal means that descendants were traced through the mother rather than through the father. So, this is different from like European cultures where you saw and kind of where we come from too, where uh, a lot of people, especially back, think back to like the kings and queens and whatnot, they took the father's last name. They didn't take the mother's last name. This was different. Matrilineal means that they would kind of go through the mother's family rather than through the father's family, which is just something that makes us a little bit different from how we live. So, a couple main takeaways from this chapter. The Yangshao culture was really important, and Banpo village led the way for advancement in China. The Banpo village was kind of a new template for villages in this area of the world, and it led to this type of village and farming being spread throughout the region. Thank you guys for listening. Go ahead and check back into Canvas for your next job, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.